Ghana just discovered oil worth $1 trillion in the Voltaian Basin? The rumors are spreading fast, but is it true? The Voltaian Basin, stretching across central and northern Ghana, is one of the country's biggest untapped frontiers. For decades, experts suspected it could hold oil and gas, but no well has ever been drilled there. That's about to change. Ghana National Petroleum Corporation (GNPC) says its subsidiary, Explorco, will finally drill the first exploration well in early 2026, the first since 1974. And here's where it gets exciting. Some speculations are claiming the Voltaian Basin could hold oil reserves worth up to $1 trillion. Yes, you heard that right, $1 trillion. But here's the truth. As of now,
GNPC is also collaborating with other companies to increase exploration, particularly in our Voltaian Basin. It is therefore not surprising that within the last month, the government has supported 2 operators to conclude appraisal of some existing discoveries. The appraisal of the Athena discovery in the West Cape 3-Point Block 2 and Urban Akoma discoveries have all been completed successfully, resulting in the declaration of commercial oil discovery.
Imagine waking up to the news that a small West African nation, a country the world thought was just another supplier of cocoa and gold, had just discovered one of the largest oil reserves on Earth worth over $1 trillion. Imagine the shockwaves this sent through Washington, London, and Paris as they realized that Ghana suddenly held the keys to the future of global energy markets. For decades, the West has relied on Africa for raw materials, cocoa, gold, timber, bauxite, but oil of this magnitude. This changes everything. This isn't just about energy. This is about power, control, and who gets to set the rules of the global economy. When the announcement hit international wires, Wall Street had one of its most volatile mornings in years. Oil futures skyrocketed, investors panicked, and analysts rushed to calculate what this discovery would mean for global supply chains. But the bigger question, the one nobody dared say out loud, was this: would Ghana sell its future to the West like so many resource-rich nations have done before, or would it chart its own destiny? In Washington, emergency meetings were called. Reports say the State Department, Pentagon, and major oil executives gathered in closed rooms to discuss contingency plans. They feared that Ghana might not only choose partners outside the Western sphere but also might weaponize its oil wealth to finance Africa's long-delayed economic independence. But here's the twist: Ghana didn't flinch. Instead of rushing to sign deals with US and European corporations, it sent delegations to Beijing, New Delhi, and even Moscow. The message was loud and clear. Ghana was open for business, but on its own terms. This move sent Western media into overdrive. Headlines warned of a new African resource nationalism. Commentators predicted chaos. Some even suggested that Ghana was becoming another Venezuela. But for ordinary Africans, this wasn't chaos, it was victory. It was proof that Africa could rise, take control of its resources, and negotiate as an equal. And it wasn't just about oil. This discovery became a rallying cry across the continent. Youth movements in Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa demanded their governments follow Ghana's lead. Social media exploded with hashtags celebrating a new African century. So why does this discovery scare the United States so much? Because this isn't just about barrels of oil, it's about the end of dependence. If Ghana uses this wealth to build refineries, power plants, and manufacturing hubs, it could transform from a raw material exporter into an industrial giant, one that no longer needs foreign aid, foreign loans, or foreign instructions. And the US knows what that means: less leverage, less control, and a future where Africa writes its own destiny, not Washington, not Paris, not London. Make no mistake, this is bigger than an oil discovery. This is a geopolitical earthquake. This is the moment where Ghana looked the world in the eye and said, "Our oil, our rules, our future. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear in this speech will shake you how Ghana outplayed the biggest superpowers. How Washington scrambled to respond, and why this $1 trillion jackpot could be the spark that finally sets Africa free." When history is written decades from now, this moment will be remembered as the day a single African nation forced the entire global order to shift overnight. Ghana, a nation that for centuries was written about as a land of gold, cocoa, and resilience, has just altered the balance of power on a scale not seen since the oil shocks of the 1970s. Imagine the scene: geologists, engineers, and government officials standing on the coast of West Africa, staring at a discovery so massive, so unprecedented, that its value was estimated at $1 trillion. Not millions, not billions, $1 trillion in crude oil reserves beneath Ghana's soil and sea. Suddenly, Ghana was no longer just another developing country trying to find its place in a Western-dominated economy. Suddenly, Ghana became the new epicenter of global energy politics, and the reaction from Washington: shock. Pure, unfiltered shock, because this was not part of their plan. The U.S. had long assumed that Africa would remain dependent, its natural resources flowing cheaply into Western markets with little resistance. They had never imagined that Ghana would discover enough oil to rival the reserves of nations like Kuwait, the Way, or even Venezuela. They had never imagined that Ghana would decide to control and manage this oil on its own terms, rather than letting foreign corporations sweep in and dictate the rules. In the days after the announcement, the White House went into crisis mode. High-level meetings were held behind closed doors. Senators and think tanks began to debate what this meant for America's energy security. Analysts on Wall Street tried to model the price shocks that would ripple through global oil markets if Ghana decided to sell its oil in local currency, or worse, in a currency backed by gold or the BRICS alliance. But in Accra, the atmosphere was electric. Ordinary Ghanaians flooded the streets celebrating. Flags were waved, speeches were made. And President Nana Akufo-Addo delivered a message that no one in the West was prepared to hear. Ghana will not sell its future. Ghana will not allow foreign multinationals to strip this nation of its new wealth while leaving behind poverty. This oil is for Ghana, for Africa, and for the future generations of this continent. The announcement sent shockwaves through every major Western capital. Overnight, Ghana's negotiating power skyrocketed. Global energy companies, from ExxonMobil to BP, began lobbying aggressively for exploration rights, but Ghana remained firm. The government announced the creation of a new state-owned energy company that would oversee production, refining, and distribution, and that company would be African-owned and African-controlled. And then came the move that truly shook America. Ghana signed its first preliminary oil export agreement not with a U.S. firm, but with India and China. The deal, worth hundreds of billions over the next decade, would see Ghana's crude shipped east, not west, cutting the U.S. and Europe almost entirely out of the equation. Washington panicked. The U.S. Secretary of State flew to Accra within days, offering partnerships, investments, and security guarantees. But Ghana was